Welcome to Dark Side of the Moon. I'm Bella and I'm a psychic medium.
And I'm Nancy, a paranormal researcher slash her cousin slash what did I say one day? Oh, master manifester.
Master so that's her title. Welcome to this week's episode. And this week's episode is on Lizzie Borden.
Yes, good old Lizzie Borden. Yeah. I think most people remember, if some people might know Lizzie Borden gave her mother 40 whacks. Went down. I can't remember the
It's a very sinister little line. And then she got mad and gave her dad 51 or something.
41 or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 51. I gave her an extra. You get 51.
Yeah, exactly.
10 extra.
So many people should know the name, at least, Lizzie Borden. Lizzie Andrew Borden. She was born July 19th, 1860. She was an American woman who was tried and acquitted of the August 4th, 1892 axe murders of her father and stepmother in Fall River, Massachusetts, which we have family there. We've both been there before. It doesn't seem very sinister.
It's funny because I've been there so many times and I've never ever been to her house. I've driven by.
Me too. I've driven by. We went by to go in, but had been closed that day. Now I guess they actually have arrows and things pointing towards the house, like as part of a tourist kind of attraction.
Oh, it's always been, but every time it's just stuff going on in the house because it's always been it's always been a B&B.
Yeah,
for a longest time.
I don't know if I'd want to.
Are you kidding me? It's always booked up for.
I know
for October and
I've stayed in like a renovated jail before in Rhode Island, and nothing really happened there. But I don't know if I want to stay here. But anyway, Borden was born into privilege as her father amassed his fortune making furniture, and curiously, he made caskets as well. Funny, not funny.
And actually, Fall River is only like probably an hour away or less than that from Salem, Massachusetts.
Yeah, it's not very far. You're right. While you're thinking the Curse of Salem has like,
I think that whole area, and it's a weird feel. Like you have been there.
Yeah.
That whole area of like where Salem is,
where the first settlers, so you get a lot of.
It's got a really weird vibe there.
So again, she was born into a life of privilege. She was expected to live just a traditional life, but then things took a horrific turn.
She killed her.
And she was known as the most notorious murder suspect. Remember, she's a suspect.
Yes, she was never convicted.
Right, and there's reasons why as you go through. Mm-hmm. So then she was charged with the gruesome murders of, like I said, her father and her stepmother. Mm-hmm. See, sadly for Lizzie, her mother died in 1863. Her mother Sarah, when Lizzie was 3, and then her father Andrew remarried Abby Durfee Gray in 1866 to help give the family some, maternal stability. I get it. Back then, men needed a woman.
Well, it's rare that you ever got a guy that would stay single.
Right. And plus with small children. Yeah. There's also a sister, Emma, as well. Another sister had died when Lizzie was a baby as well, when the mother was still alive. But
her sister's from the same parents, right? It's not from the stepmother.
No, there's no kids from them together.
That's the one thing I couldn't, like, I have done research.
I didn't see anything on that. No.
But I always thought that
all that was left was Lizzie and Emma. There was another sister who had passed away when Lizzie was a very small child. Mm-hmm. So Lizzie volunteered. She taught Sunday school. She championed women's rights. She's very progressive. Mm-hmm. And she had no memory of her actual mother. She called the stepmother Abby mother, right? Her sister Emma, who was 9 years older than Lizzie, called her Mrs. Borden. Understandable. Although
that might have been the relationship that she wanted to have.
Yeah, possibly. Right? Yeah, it might have been. So then, although when Mr. Borden years later bestowed property to the stepmother Abby's family, there was a family member, a woman who was going to be homeless, and apparently it didn't sit well with Emma and Lizzie, so they demanded their father give them property as well. And that's when Lizzie apparently stopped calling her
Abby
mom. Yeah, started calling her Mrs. Borden as well. So then they demanded the father give them property. So Andrew gave them the deed to their mother's family home.
Oh no!
And they became landlords of that home. But apparently, according to some research, because again, there's a lot of theories on this story on Lizzie. They didn't like all the work that came with caretaking the home. Mm-hmm. They didn't want to be landlords.
Yeah.
So then they sold it back to their father for $5,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So rumors state that their father, Andrew, even though was rich, that he was frugal and had no indoor plumbing. And that
yeah, I've heard that too.
Lizzie was forced to make her own dresses. Apparently this was not true. The Borden home had indoor plumbing, had electricity. There was a privy, like a toilet down in the cellar. And Lizzie and Emma were given advances. And in fact, Emma was away visiting her seamstress the day of the murders.
I've always read that he was very cheap. Like he was very stringy.
Yeah, I was reading that too.
And with food and everything.
I did read some of that, but then I was going with it. Well, let's go with the other aspect of it. So
no, I never heard that he was he was nice to other people, but he wasn't very nice at home.
Well, I don't know. The stuff I was reading, it didn't really go too far one way or the other.
Well, let's think about this. The man got killed.
Well, yeah, but who killed him? That's the thing. As we go on.
Well, I have my theory.
Right. And
we'll get to that.
I've heard your theory before, and that is one of the theories.
Yes.
But so then on August 3rd, it said that Lizzie called the doctor as the whole family fell ill. Lizzie was afraid it was food poisoning. Andrew refused care, so he wouldn't have to pay for a doctor visit. Well, there you go.
My theory.
But oddly, I guess Lizzie had purchased prussic acid that day, claiming it was for cleaning a seal skin.
Mm-hmm.
And then also that day as well, John Morris, which is Lizzie's uncle on her mother's side, came for a visit to discuss business with his former brother-in-law and stayed for a few days and was going to stay for a few days. Mm-hmm. Lizzie had been visiting her neighbor and close friend Alice Russell, and came home later that evening, and they were discussing business, and she went straight up to bed. So the next day, this is the day of the murders, after breakfast, John Morris left to visit other family and was to return to dinner that evening. Apparently, Andrew invited him for dinner that evening. So then Abby started to feel better. This is the stepmother, and asked Bridget, which is the maid of the house, to clean the windows. But Bridget still was feeling sick and went outside. And Bridget found Lizzie in the barn about 9:30 a.m. So Lizzie asked her not to lock the doors while Lizzie was still outside working. So while and Abby, I guess, was upstairs cleaning the guest room because John Morris had just been there. Oh. Yeah, and apparently that's when she was cleaning the guest room. That's when she met her attacker, which ended up being started with a blow to the face with a hatchet, then received 19 more blows to the back of the head while she still lay on the floor. So when you think of that, I'm like, 19 blows? That has to be somebody you know. That's what they're saying. She died in the guest room, and this was and they figure that she died approximately between 9 and 10 a.m. So it says Andrew returned home about 10:30, and had to be let in. So obviously the doors were locked. Well, I'm assuming because Lizzie was now in the house. He was still feeling ill, so he went down. The account is he went down to take a nap on the sofa. At around 11 a.m., Lizzie called the maid, Bridget, screaming. Andrew was found bleeding, so it had to be a recent attack because he's bleeding, and bludgeoned to death. His eyeball had actually been cut in half, so they figured that he was probably still asleep.
Oh, God. How do you sleep through that?
The thing I thought was weird, because in a couple places I had read, it was like, then Bridget was told to fetch a doctor. I'm like, yeah, I don't think it's safe.
We may still be able to save him.
I know.
Quick, get the doctor.
I thought that was odd. She was went to go fetch a doctor. How are you supposed to save this person? I don't know. I guess I didn't realize, but
I guess not.
But news spread fast, obviously, and the Fall River police were eventually contacted. Police arrived as well as the doctor and a group of concerned citizens. Like all the common concerned citizens, more like
they're all looky loose.
Yeah, that's about it.
I wonder what happened.
Yeah, exactly. What is very damning on Lizzie's side is that they said when police first questioned Lizzie, she showed no signs of distress or visible emotion.
Well, maybe she's still in shock. She could have
been in shock. That's the thing, right? So, and then when questioned, her story
sounds like the German witches thing,
right? But then they also said her stories were inconsistent. First, she said she was in the barn looking for iron to fix a screen door. Then she changed to the barn looking for items for an upcoming fishing trip. She was looking for the sinkers. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the lures.
Yeah.
For a fishing trip. She also said that at first she heard strange noise coming from the house while she was in the barn, and then she later denied hearing anything at all. So I don't know if maybe she was, again, I guess she could have been in shock and a little just disoriented. I'm not sure.
Well, what about the maid? The maid was cleaning the windows. What, didn't the maid not hear anything?
Well, that was it too. And that's what makes you wonder about the maid, because also Bridget, the maid, said she had helped Andrew out of his boots when he got home. Yet you actually see him wearing boots in the pictures of the murder scene.
So which boots does she?
She said she could get him on his boots and put on his slippers. But he's not wearing slippers in the murder scene photos. He's still wearing his boots. So I don't understand that. That sounds odd to me too.
Yeah.
Like, that's why there's so many theories to this. It was like, did Lizzie actually do it, or did Bridget do it, or were they not together? There's a lot of crazy stuff. But so then and then Lizzie had said that Abby was out of the house because she got a telegram that morning to go visit somebody, and then she changed to say, "Oh, she might be upstairs." Like, okay. And that telegram, they tried looking for it; it was never to be found. And I think it was either Bridget or one of the other maids said, "Well, we probably burned it." And then Lizzie was like, agreed to that.
Did they mention where the older sister was?
Yeah, I just said she was visiting her seamstress the day of the murders.
The whole day,
and she was in Connecticut. The New Haven. She was visiting a seamstress. She took a train to go see the seamstress to buy like dresses. That's what they said. That's what they said. Yeah. And what's odd about that is that even though they telegrammed Emma to come, right, by the time she got telegram, apparently she didn't even take the first 3 trains. She took like a later train. Like, you think you got a telegram saying that your dad and your stepmother are both bludgeoned to death, you would come home.
She's like, nah, I need to finish this dress.
Right. So then the uncle John Morris returned, which I thought was strange too, that he returned, because I thought he wasn't supposed to return till later on, but he returned. And then as soon as he saw the bodies, he was outside in the yard. He stayed there for hours. So it was like, and eating like pears from the pear tree.
He got hungry.
So I don't know if he was just, it seems suspicious, or again, is he just in shock? So yeah, Emma's sister was away in Fairhaven, Connecticut, visiting her seamstress, and was telegrammed of the incident, but didn't take the first 3 trains. So I thought that was odd. Like, why wouldn't you take the first train out?
Yeah, you would. Like,
yeah,
she kind of thinks that
again, it's some kind of conspiracy, or they're all.
It was a conspiracy for her to stay away.
You would think. For her to maybe stay innocent of any crimes. I don't know. Again, all theories.
Because it's like, when did she leave to go to the seamstress?
It didn't say that she had been visiting. I think she had left that day or the night before to go visit her seamstress, because apparently they had lots of dresses because they were rich or something. But the Fall River police were severely criticized for not thoroughly investigating the murder scene. That's pretty standard
even to this day.
Also, giving Lizzie strange behavior, investigators didn't even, because remember how you said there were a lot of gawkers?
Yeah,
a lot of gawkers also gave their own testimony, right? So they've also given Lizzie strange behavior because she wasn't really showing any emotion, and they were like, they didn't even search Lizzie for bloodstains, like looking at her through her dress, but apparently back in the day, looking through a lady's belongings was considered inappropriate at the time. Really, that trumps a murder investigation? But I know we don't live in those times, right?
Like, oh my God, are you serious?
But also Bridget and other witnesses denied that Lizzie looked strange, or that her hair or appearance was anything but normal. But again, if it's possible, what if they're all in on it? So they're all sticking up. It
sounds like there was a cahoots.
You would almost think, but we all know to this day there's no real answer. But several hatchets were found in the cellar, one of which had a broken handle, but it had no blood on it. But the thing is, it had no blood on it. I don't know when they
can't do DNA tests back then.
I don't know when they found the hatchets, because apparently they were left in the house for several days before taking them into evidence. This is all crap the Fall River police.
Let's just let them clean it off first.
No, take this in for a minute.
Yeah.
So there's 2 dead bodies, right? Bludgeoned to death. I mean, eyes just cut out.
Like, it's some serious anger behind that.
Yeah, there is. There's no way that somebody, you would think, but I don't know, as I go on, there's other theories as well. But the bodies of Andrew and Abby were placed on the dining room table for exams on their stomachs. They removed their stomachs right there at the dining room table.
Why are they examining their stomach?
To see if poison is found. So I guess they do something where they add something.
See if poison is found.
See if they're poisoned.
So the
right?
So that's evidence enough. It's here.
I know. No, this is legit.
Corner. Like someone like the police. I'm sorry. I hate to criticize, but there's a pretty evidence here.
Right. And the bodies actually stayed on the table for several days.
I thought you were going to say several weeks. Several days is bad.
I know.
But several weeks. There's no informant.
Well, then, yeah, the night of the murders, right? The night of the murders, Lizzie, John Morris, Bridget, they all stayed that evening in the house, and there was still blood all over the wallpaper, furniture, and the bodies were starting to smell. But there were always police outside the house. That they were allowed to stay at the house, but there's police outside just to make sure that
they wouldn't kill the bodies.
Well, nobody was coming in and out and that kind of things. I think it was to kind of keep the suspects in, possible suspects, because it was
probably more like a house arrest, right? Because they're trying to figure out which one.
My God, would you want to sleep in a house with a dead body sitting in the living room? How do you have
that smell?
How do you even eat?
Forget about the eating,
right? Alice Russell, which is the neighbor / good friend of Lizzie that Lizzie would visit a lot, found days after the murder, because the investigation took a while.
Yeah.
Days after the murder, found Lizzie holding a blue dress. Lizzie said she was getting rid of it because,
like the Clinton color blue.
Right? Yeah, I don't think those are white spots. But Lizzie said it was an old dress and had many paint stains on it. Red paint, maybe, right? But then Alice, Lizzie said it has many paint stains, so she actually, threw it in the oven to burn. And Alice Russell had said you should do that because that makes you look more guilty, right? Yeah. And then Alice said she found out from Emma later that dress was actually fairly new. It was just made within like a few weeks, so it wouldn't have been as old as Lizzie told. Yeah, I'm not surprised for painting. The sister saying this though, right?
That's true.
Although, which is another weird thing is Alice didn't say this in the initial inquest, because the trial didn't even start for almost a whole year. There were inquests and stuff like this. Alice didn't disclose this information about the dress until like a year later, and that actually caused them to stop being friends. Clearly. So then Alice Russell.
So which leads you to believe the next question: was Alice just doing that for attention? Because she wants to get attention, like to get her, because everybody
to get her 50 minutes of fame.
Yeah, to get her 50 minutes of fame, and because it didn't really. I do not believe that not Abby, but Lizzie's sister would go and say something like that.
That does seem strange.
It just seems strange, like knowing that could actually implicate her sister.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. This story has got a lot of different layers. Yeah. But so during the inquest, this is before the trial, trying to figure out if Lizzie should be charged with murder.
Yeah.
So that's why they said the whole burning dress thing seemed weird, because if she kind of knew she was becoming a suspect, she might be trying to get rid of evidence. But during the inquest,
but she wouldn't have done it in front of a friend.
You wouldn't think so.
No.
So Lizzie refused to answer questions during the inquest, behaved erratically, but she had been prescribed morphine for her nerves, so that could explain that. She's basically high as F, completely out of it.
No wonder she's not showing any emotion either.
Well, that was the day of the murders, so she probably wasn't drugged up then, unless she was taking morphine on her own. Like,
she might have been,
or some kind of opium or something. I don't know, maybe. But then on August 11th, following the funerals and the investigation into multiple suspects, Lizzie was charged with murder. Because looking at the thing, she does look like the most plausible suspect. Yeah, just because of her behavior, and refusing to answer questions. But then again, she's on morphine. I wouldn't be able to answer a damn thing if you. So she was on August 11th. She was charged with murder. She spent 10 months in jail waiting for trial.
So wow, just waiting for the trial.
Waiting for trial. Well, hopefully it's like here.
Time
served. But see, because she wasn't actually, I don't know, it's crazy.
She wasn't
10 months
with it, though.
She was charged. She wasn't convicted.
She wasn't convicted yet. That's it.
So her story became a media sensation. People flocked to the Borden house from all over, right? Her trial began in June of 1893. So that was almost a year later. And listen to this. This is what I find very interesting. They said, oddly enough, there had been a similar murder that happened close by that happened while Lizzie awaited trial, but police deemed it not relevant to the case, even though it had striking similarities.
Wow.
So there might have been like a serial killer.
Could have been.
You don't know. I mean, there's serial killers back in the day. Jack the Ripper.
Or this was a copycat.
I mean, there could be that because it's been a year.
Yeah, it was been a year, and she was like, "You know what? We're gonna do like her."
Yeah, exactly. So during the trial, because again, this is a long year. Lizzie's accounts remain inconsistent, but the hatchet that the court presented as the murder weapon had no traces of blood on it. They even brought out the clean skulls of Andrew and Abby. You'll see pictures on here, just huge gaping holes. Even the people in the courtroom were so shocked by it, and Lizzie herself fainted.
What? You could be bringing in the skull?
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't bring in the stomach contents of Dick together.
Oh, I know. I still can't believe they even opened the stomach at all.
I know.
To find out if they were poisoned. Isn't that a moot point at this time?
She's like, I'm not a doctor, but I pretty much, or a police officer, but I can tell you how they died.
Right. So inconsistent testimony, unfortunately, plagued the entire trial, which maybe is good or bad at the same time. Because, I mean, that's probably why they could acquit.
Yeah.
Along with the lack of a thorough investigation by the Fall River police. Plus, there were no actual evidence linking the hatchet presented to the crime. So it reminds me of OJ. If it don't fit, you must acquit.
That's exactly what I was like. Because I was like, how do you know if it was even that hatchet?
Well, exactly. Right? Well, this explains a whole lot. The jury, right, on June 20th, 1893, it only took an hour for the jury to acquit Lizzie of the murders based on pure circumstantial evidence and insufficient proof beyond a reasonable doubt. There was so much inconsistencies and so many back and forths. How could you, in good conscience?
Well, also at the time, it was a woman and she had some means. Yeah. She's inherited her dad's. Dad was pretty rich. He was like one of the richest people in Fall River. So is she really going to get are they really going to put her in jail? Probably not, because most of the people that are there are her peers. Now, if it was someone of a lower class, oh yeah,
probably. Well, and just like the witch trials,
they would have died. Those people would have been to jail for sure.
So then, when Lizzie was coming out of the courthouse a free woman, she expressed her relief to the reporters and said she was the happiest woman in the world.
Well, I guess she wasn't on morphine anymore.
That's it. So this ended like the year-long saga that had captured the country. It is to this day one of the biggest murder mysteries. Right. Let's see. So no one else was charged with the murders, and despite being ostracized from other residents, Borden spent the remainder of her life in Fall River. See, as being a rich person, if you're going to be ostracized, I would have moved. But I guess you're famous all over the country. But I'm sure you could move somewhere. There's no TVs back then. So why would she have stayed?
Because that was her. Well, she inherited all her dad's businesses and stuff. So that's
I guess, yeah. But she didn't live in the house. Her and her sister Emma got a house in Fall River. Yeah, she lived a rich lifestyle with staff.
Well, technically, her sister was the one who inherited the money, not Lizzie.
Yeah, but then Emma stopped talking to Lizzie in 1905, so she moved out of the house in 1905. Something about a party Lizzie had thrown for an actress. And they never spoke again.
Wow, that's like some serious allegations.
I know. So
not the fact that she might have killed her parents.
So Lizzie died at the age of 66 in 1927 of pneumonia, and Emma died like days later.
That's pretty freaky.
I know, it is kind of sad when you think about it.
Yeah,
there are many like other theories as to who might have done it. One of the craziest theories that really don't have any basis is that Lizzie was having an affair with Bridget, the maid.
Wow.
Never
heard that one before.
And that's why Bridget was like, "Yo, no, there was nothing wrong with her that day. She's perfectly fine." You know, that kind of thing. Yeah. Another one is the theory that you talk about a lot is sexual abuse in the family might have been a motive. For example, Lizzie it was rumored that she actually nailed her bedroom door shut. So, and that could explain some of her disassociative behavior during the trial.
Yeah.
Because she didn't want to bring any of that up.
That's the theory I've heard across the board, was that there was sexual abuse.
Oh, yeah, maybe there was.
Yeah.
Also, another one is John Morris killed them. You know, it's the remember, he's the brother-in-law, right? He was the brother of the mother. So he had no.
The theory that I heard was that it's all connected. There was sexual abuse. John Moore, Morris, she told him about it. And that was where the whole plan came into. So all of those people that were suspects were all in on it.
Well, that could be it, because it was funny. John Morris's alibi was so detailed. He even mentioned being in a streetcar with 7 priests. And the
7, wow.
And the conductor confirmed that there were priests on the streetcar that day. But
that's a pretty specific number.
7?
Wow, you have to 1, 2, 3, 4.
Doesn't that seem odd to you?
Yes,
honestly,
it does.
But then years later, you know, in the most recent past, there have been like ghost hunt. There was a ghost hunter that kind of went in, you know, brought the EMF information, and when they asked who, you know, they went up to the guest room and asked Abby who killed you, because she faced the attacker. They assumed, because she got the first gash, and she says John. So they're thinking that it was John Morris. But again, your theory might be correct with the other theory of everybody was kind of in on it to a certain extent. But who actually did the blows? I mean, John Morris is a man. You think he'd be stronger? He would probably be strong enough to do those 19 whacks and whatever whacks they did on Abby.
The one that I've kind of heard, because I've seen different mediums go in, and actually not investigators doing getting the information, but actually mediums that went in, and there has been more than one. The theory is that John might have been the one that killed Abby,
right?
But Lizzie killed her father.
Really?
And that's the thing. So
you think he actually probably was asleep, because you would have had to get him while he was.
Well, this is the thing. The reason that they know, Abby knew her dad. Her dad had the same routine every day.
Yeah, it makes sense,
right?
People are creatures of habit. Yeah.
So this is what he was doing, and actually, they had gotten sick because they had consumption because of being cheap. The meat that he had bought actually was bad.
Well, they did say food poisoning.
Yeah, it wasn't food poisoning. It was just the meat was bad, and they all ate it, and they all end up getting diarrhea. So that's why they were sick to their stomach. So they didn't really account for that. It wasn't something that was done, but it was something that just happened. And then that was one of the things that they had gotten. And she always claimed through the medium that she was a good daughter, but she did finally admit that she did take part in the killing, but only of her father. And that's why they keep saying that he was abusing her.
And that's where the sexual abuse, or just the abuse came in.
He was abusing her. Like, what they had said was that he was an abusive man. But her anger towards Abby was that Abby knew it was going on and never did anything about it.
Yeah, that's another theory. Like I said, there's a whole bunch.
So
the theories are like massive.
But it's kind of a weird thing, because they talk about that place being cursed as well, because I guess next door, her I think it was her aunt, or her aunt lived next door. And I think it was her aunt or her uncle lived next door to the Borden house. And literally, I think it was like 4 or 5 years before then, killed her own children. They think that she lost her mind and took 2 of her children, and actually they had like a cistine in the back or in the house, and took the children and dropped them in there, and they died.
Ooh,
and drowned them.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah, that actually predates the whole thing. So they're like,
this is before the Borden murders?
This is before the Borden murders. And so I'm
surprised it never came up in the 2 or 3 documentaries I ended up watching.
Yeah, you got to go for it. This is when you go down the rabbit hole. So if you research the murder before the Borden murders that happened, and it was really next door. And they were relatives. I think it was her aunt. I don't know if it was her mother's sister or whatever it was. And she killed herself as well, I think. So it was like
so she went mad.
Yeah, she went mad, killed her children and killed herself. And then the husband got home, and they're all gone.
Maybe like a modern day Postpartum depression.
The children, maybe, but the children, they weren't babies.
No,
I don't
no
think.
baby.
They weren't a baby. I think they were a little older, but not that much. Like I think they were under 5. So I vaguely remember the story because I remember watching it, and then people were saying that they were thinking that there was some kind of connection because it was just kind of weird. It's like right next door there was a murder, and then all of a sudden, not that long afterwards, the sister died. Like her mother, Abby's mother died. And then all of a sudden the Borden murders happened where the father died. So I've always heard the theory that all of them were involved, including the maid.
It's possible because that's why there was so much inconsistent testimony, and they had to acquit her.
Because they couldn't, it wasn't just one person. So, and that's the one thing that she's always been upset about. And
true, there's a lot of moving parts.
Because I guess she has a hard time talking. If you go to the Borden house, you will not sense Lizzie there. No? She doesn't come through there. You have to go to the house that she purchased with her sister. That's where she's at. She will not come through there in that house. Very rarely will she ever speak to anybody.
It was a very traumatic experience.
Yeah.
Either way,
she doesn't want to be associated with that. So the one that I saw was they went to the house that she lived at, and she refuses to be called Lizzie because Lizzie is the one.
And that's why she changed her name to Lisbeth.
So which is a real name. So if you want to talk to her, you have to call her by Lisbeth. So the two, one of them that did talk to her was Chip Coffee. And
I like Chip.
Yeah, Chip Coffee. He was able to talk to her at the house that she purchased herself as Lisbeth. And she didn't say that she was a good daughter and I
did find it in the cemetery. Because did you ever go to the cemetery and actually visit the grave?
No, I never did.
It says she's kind of buried next to her sister, but not really. She's kind of separated from the rest of the family plot.
I think that was a controversy actually, because she wanted to be buried in the family plot and she did not get buried there because of the fact of that.
Yeah, she's kind of in the Borden area, but she's kind of farther away.
She can't be the only person that's ever killed somebody.
Well, that's what I find so fascinating about this story is because let's face it, there have been other murders, and this is actually just a simple small town, rich family. Yet she's still publicly, like, it's widespread.
She was shunned after
still part of American popular culture, even to this day. Oh, she was completely
shunned of it, and a lot of the stuff.
That's what it is. All of these are literally theories. They're just so many.
But I mean, in the end, there's 2 people that are dead. That got hatcheted to death.
Yeah, and fascinating that of all the murders, I mean, there's a lot of murder stories.
Plenty of murders before the Bordens, and there's been plenty of murders
after, and this one's really taken hold. Like it's still something that everybody remembers to this day.
I think it's just because it's so many different people are involved, and they just fumbled it so badly.
Right, and there's so many different theories, and we really will never really know exactly what happened. So I think that's why people still love hearing about it.
Yeah.
So hopefully, what are your theories, people? Like I like to hear some people.
Do you think Lizzie did it? Do you think all 3 of them got into cahoots, including the maid? Or do you think the maid killed the father or vice versa? The uncle killed the Abby?
I can't see this being a one-man show.
I can't see it being either
because a lot of moving parts here. There's a lot of people involved.
Yeah, there was a lot of cover-ups with stuff, and they needed it. They needed that cover-up.
That would have to be quite an arrangement, though. Like that would have to be carefully planned out. Like honestly.
Well, I'm sure it probably was.
But then again, the Fall River Police did such a bang-up job. So yeah, people, please write down your own theories. We'd love to hear the comments.
Yes,
and hope you enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
bye.